This film begins by showing an abandoned warehouse where a high-class narcotics trafficking group is preparing packages of narcotics they plan to send out of town. The leader of the group, known as Bossman, is seen ordering his subordinates, Boila, Jay, Baz, and AJ, to quickly load all their ordered goods into the camper van that will later be driven by Pete, a newly joined subordinate of Bossman. In this delivery, Bossman intends to personally escort and give directions to Pete to ensure they pass through the border route that is not guarded by the police. After all the narcotics packages are packed, Bossman will get into the delivery camper van with Pete and Jay, who are tasked with guarding the goods at the back of the camper van. Meanwhile, Baz, Boila, and AJ will ride in a car that follows the camper van from behind. The scene then shifts to an elementary school teacher named Emma Lou Rue, who is teaching her students in class. As usual, Emma is always enthusiastic about teaching her students, especially since that day is the last day she teaches before the long school holiday, which Emma plans to use to go home and spend her vacation at her father's house. After class ends, Emma, who is starting to pack her things, suddenly remembers her boyfriend, whom she hasn't contacted for several days because they have been arguing. Even so, Emma decides to ignore her boyfriend and quickly packs her things so she can leave for her father's house. Sometime later, Emma meets her colleague at school, who has received a large bag for her. Seeing this, Emma smiles, guessing that the bag was sent by her relative who knows that she is going home to her father's house. While handing over the bag, Emma's colleague is curious about the contents of the large bag, so Emma explains that the bag only contains some supplies for a long trip. Not wanting to waste time, Emma bids farewell to her colleague and immediately sets off for her father's house, which is located at the border far from the city. During the journey, Emma, who is driving her car, is seen calling her father, Jacques Leroux, to inform him that she will be coming home to spend the holidays at his house. Hearing this news, Jacques, who now lives alone after his wife passed away, feels happy because his one and only daughter will be visiting him. Meanwhile, Bossman and his subordinates are still on their way to the delivery location with the narcotics packages they are carrying. Since it is his first time participating in a narcotics delivery mission, Pete looks nervous. So Bossman asks him to stay calm because he will find an alternative route to the border that is free from police patrols. Back in Emma's car, after receiving a message from her boyfriend who keeps apologizing and wants to reconcile with her, Emma looks annoyed and decides to pull over to respond to the message. At that moment, Emma admits that she is fed up with her boyfriend who is abusive and quick-tempered, especially after an incident where her boyfriend got into a fight that resulted in a man being hospitalized. Although Emma's boyfriend explains that he was only defending himself, she refuses to listen to any excuses from him. Emma even chooses not to reply to her boyfriend's message and quickly gets back into her car to continue her journey to Jacques' house, which is still far away. Near the quiet city border, a cop is seen having lunch after patrolling the area when he spots Bossman's camper van passing by. Without hesitation, the cop quickly goes to the roadside and stops Bossman's camper van to inspect it. Bossman is quite surprised to see a cop patrolling that road, as the alternative route is usually not guarded by the police. Nonetheless, Bossman asks Pete and Jay, who are at the back of the camper van, to stay calm so they do not arouse suspicion. The cop then stops the camper van and asks Pete to show his driving license. Unfortunately, this makes Pete even more nervous, causing his hands to tremble as he hands over his driving license to the cop, who begins to suspect the items in the back of the camper van. At the same time, Baz and the others in the car see their camper van being stopped by the cop, prompting Baz to ask his two companions to be ready to assist Bossman. When Bossman sees Baz's car and the others pulling over across the road, he feels calm because his subordinates will help him. Shortly after, Baz and his two companions get out of the car, asking the cop what is happening. Likewise, Bossman gets out of the camper van, carrying a long-barreled weapon, causing the cop to draw his gun. Unfortunately, the cop is unable to do anything after Baz and the others point their weapons at him. After the cop lowers his weapon, Baz then knocks the cop unconscious and removes his handcuff equipment before finally putting the cop into the camper van. After subduing the cop, Bossman and his other subordinates continue their journey, while Baz deliberately takes the cop's car to eliminate evidence. In the camper van, Bossman expresses his frustration with Pete for disrupting their journey, especially since they also need to take the cop to a hidden location for execution before the cop can cause them any more trouble. Meanwhile, without Emma knowing, The route she chose is the same route taken by the narcotics trafficking group. Shortly after turning onto a smaller road, Emma sees a turtle crossing in the middle of the road, causing Emma to stop her car and move the turtle to the side of the road. At the same time, Bossman's group enters a fenced area that seems rarely used by people. Not long after, Emma's car experienced problems, causing the engine to emit smoke. As a result, Emma became frustrated after her journey was once again disrupted, and the situation worsened when she couldn't find a cell signal in the area, making it impossible for her to contact anyone for help. Back to Bossman and his subordinates, they are seen having tied up the cop and are preparing to shoot the cop who obstructed their journey. At that moment, Bossman orders Baz to give his pistol to Pete because he wants to see Pete finish off the cop's accountability for the trouble he has caused. When receiving the pistol, Pete looks terrified, so Bossman asks Pete to practice shooting first. At the same time, the sound of the gunshots is heard by Emma, who thinks there are people around that place. Without hesitation, Emma grabs a bottle and walks toward the source of the sound, hoping those people can provide water to cool down her car engine. Meanwhile, Bossman orders Pete to shoot the cop immediately. At that moment, Pete tries to refuse, but under continuous pressure, Pete finally shoots the cop in front of Bossman and the others. Unbeknownst to them, Emma witnesses the event as she arrives to ask for water. Shocked by what she sees, Emma accidentally drops the glass bottle she is carrying, alerting Bossman and the others to her presence. Quickly, Emma tries to run away from the scene, but unfortunately, Bossman orders Baz and Jay to chase after her. When caught, Emma tries to explain that she was only looking for water at that location, but Baz still takes her because she has seen their group kill a cop. Emma is unable to resist, while the cop lying behind the traffickers is actually still alive as Pete's shot only hit his shoulder. The cop then signals Emma to remain silent while he crawls to the police car behind him. Meanwhile, Bossman is drawing lots for two of his subordinates who intend to assault Emma before they kill her. Using a coin, Boila emerges as the winner, so he immediately takes Emma to a place and handcuffs her using the equipment he took from the cop. On the other hand, the cop manages to get into the car and tries to escape from the place. Bossman and the others do not expect the cop to still be alive, so they try to shoot at the cop's car to stop him. After that, Bossman is also seen pulling out his long-barreled weapon to hunt the cop. Seeing the traffickers busy chasing the cop, Emma, who is handcuffed to an abandoned charcoal grill at the place, tries to reach the cop's equipment that is lying not far from her. Meanwhile, Bossman climbs to a higher place and aims at the cop, eventually succeeding in shooting the cop dead. Back to Emma, who manages to free herself from the handcuffs and recalls Jacques' advice on self-defense. Emma grabs a knife that Boila dropped while running after the cop and then leaves the area. Switching to Bossman and the others, where Bossman was seen scolds Pete again for not doing his job properly, which almost led to the cop escaping. At the same time, Boila remembers Emma who was left handcuffed alone, so he runs to the place where Emma was, now seeing her climbing over a fence. Emma then returns to her car, grabs her gear, and goes to find a hiding place. Shortly after, Boila finds that Emma has escaped and reports it to Bossman. Hearing this, Bossman slaps and blames Boila for not finishing off Emma immediately. Bossman then orders all his subordinates to quickly find Emma to ensure there are no living witnesses to their crimes. At home, Jacques begins to worry about Emma, who has not yet arrived, and he cannot reach her phone. Jacques then walks outside with the help of his cane, hoping that Emma will come home soon. In the desert, Emma, having walked quite far from the road, decides to hide behind a large boulder. Though she cries out of frustration over the recent events, Emma eventually pulls herself together and starts sorting through some essential gear to take with her as she continues her journey to her father's house, avoiding the criminals chasing her. On the other hand, Baz has found Emma's empty car and reports it to Bossman via walkie-talkie. Meanwhile, Jay, still inspecting Emma's car, finds her identification, leading Jay and Baz to suspect that Emma is heading to the address listed on her ID. Upon receiving the report about Emma's shoe prints leading into the desert, Pete volunteers to lead the search for her, noting his previous training as a desert ranger. Bossman agrees and feels pleased that Pete is finally proving reliable. After following Emma's shoe prints, Pete informs the group that Emma has crossed the desert boundary fence. They all cross the fence and use shrub branches to sweep away their tracks to avoid being found. Meanwhile, Emma continues her journey along a commonly traveled path until she realizes that her shoe prints can be tracked by the criminals. Therefore, Emma starts thinking of ways to disguise her footprints to evade the pursuing criminals. Back to Pete and the others, they arrive at the boulder where Emma had rested and find some items she left behind. Based on the footprints found, Pete explains that Emma is heading towards a nearby road. Switching to Jacques' friend, Manier Senecal, who is passing by the road where Emma's car broke down, he notices the abandoned car and inspects it, finding Emma's ID left behind. Recognizing Emma, Manier calls out for her, but receiving no response, so he rushes to find a signal to contact Jacques. At the same time, Emma uses her binoculars and sees the criminals following her shoe prints. Knowing this, she then creates fake tracks to mislead the criminals. Back to Manier, who has found a phone signal, he immediately contacts Jacques regarding the discovery of Emma's empty car at the desert's edge. Hearing the news from his friend, Jacques realizes that Emma is in danger and hastily drives to Emma's car location, taking a long-barreled weapon with him. At the same time, the fake tracks Emma made successfully confuse Pete and the others. Consequently, Bossman orders everyone to spread out and search for her before nightfall. On the other hand, Emma has reached a water reservoir provided for livestock around the desert. While resting, Emma recalls her father's advice that water can be used to fight enemies. After quenching her thirst, Emma refills her water bottle and mixes it with poison powder she found in her bag. Meanwhile, Jacques meets Manier at the location where Emma's car broke down and immediately inspects her car. Seeing that someone deliberately swept away the footprints around the car, Jacques suspects that his daughter was robbed by several people. Manier, hearing this, looks panicked, while Jacques remains calm because he often taught Emma various ways to fight off criminals. This is due to Jacques' profession as a former Special Forces member in the military. And the equipment Emma has was actually sent by Jacques, who was worried that she might encounter trouble on her journey. Switching to Boila and AJ, who are searching separately, Boila sees Emma near the water reservoir and plans to spend time with her before killing her. At that moment, Boila asks AJ to keep this a secret from Bossman, so AJ leaves the area for a while, allowing him to approach Emma alone. Unbeknownst to Boila and AJ, Emma is aware of their presence and deliberately lures Boila towards her. As Boila approaches and points his gun, he demands Emma hand over the drink she is carrying. Happily, Emma gives it to him, and Boila drinks the poison water. Just as Boila draws near, Emma stabs him multiple times until he dies, then takes his gun. From a distance, AJ only sees Emma refilling her water bottle and senses something is wrong, so he tries to contact Boila via walkie-talkie. Hearing the walkie-talkie connection, Emma quickly takes some water and spreads the poison in the water reservoir, then leaves with Boila's walkie-talkie. AJ then chases after the fleeing Emma while informing Bossman of her location. Upon arriving at the water reservoir, AJ is furious to see Boila dead, and Emma had also threatened AJ through the walkie-talkie, prompting him to chase after Emma. During the chase, AJ fires his gun into the air to signal his location so that Bossman can find him. Hearing AJ's gunshots, Bossman immediately gathers his 3 subordinates and rushes toward the source of the shots, while Emma decides to climb onto a large boulder to more easily attack AJ. When Bossman and the others arrive at the water reservoir, they are shocked to find Boila dead with stab wounds. Before continuing their pursuit, Pete, Jay, and Baz drink from the water reservoir, unaware that Emma has poisoned the water. At the same time, Emma throws a rock that hits AJ on the head, knocking him unconscious. Unfortunately, when Emma descends and starts to leave, AJ regains consciousness and tries to attack her. Using a sharp weapon lying nearby, Emma stabs AJ to death. After that, Emma challenges Bossman to catch her, which angers Bossman, and he orders his subordinates to find Emma immediately, despite Baz and the others starting to feel the effects of the poison, causing their bodies to weaken. Meanwhile, Manier, still searching for Emma, arrives at the water reservoir and sees Boila's lifeless body, prompting him to leave quickly to report his findings to Jacques. Similarly, Bossman and the others finally find AJ's lifeless body. From a distance, Emma observes Bossman and the others through binoculars, noting that the criminals are still pursuing her. Bossman, aware of Emma's location, aims at her, but Emma manages to avoid the shot by hiding behind a rock. Bossman and his subordinates then descend the hill to pursue Emma. where Bossman fires another shot after spotting Emma at an abandoned building near the hill. Despite his 3 subordinates feeling nauseous from the effects of the poison they drank, Bossman insists they continue chasing Emma down the hill. When Emma arrives at the abandoned building, she plans to use various objects in the building to fight the criminals, while Baz and the others start to spread out to surround the building. On the other hand, Jacques chooses to go home and wait for his daughter in front of the house, believing that Emma will return. After all, he has trained his daughter in self-defense against criminals. Back in the desert, Jay slowly enters the abandoned building where Emma is hiding. Unfortunately, before Jay finds Emma, she suddenly attacks him with a large saw, killing him. Shortly afterward, Pete, realizing his comrade is dead, hesitates to enter the building and claims he is just the driver delivering the criminals' goods. When Emma captures Pete, he begs her to let him go and promises not to reveal her location. Feeling pity for Pete, Emma releases him, but he suddenly shouts, revealing their location. Annoyed, Emma shoots Pete dead and quickly moves to another building to confront Baz. At the same time, Bossman decides to descend the hill after learning that Pete is dead. Back to Emma, who starts searching for Baz. She suddenly gets attacked by Baz, leading to a duel. Using her self-defense skills, Emma defeats Baz by striking his head with an iron. As Emma exits the building, Bossman, who has been waiting for her, realizes that she has eliminated all his subordinates. Consequently, Bossman challenges Emma to a cowboy-style duel. Emma then accepts the challenge and manages to take down Bossman despite being shot in the shoulder. Sometime later, Jacques cries tears of joy upon seeing Emma return home safely despite having several injuries on her body. At the end of the film, it shows Emma receiving treatment in the hospital. After that, she reconnects with her boyfriend and reconciles after realizing that the violence her boyfriend committed was only an act of self-defense. Moral lesson from the story: running drugs through an abandoned warehouse is risky business. Make sure your getaway driver can handle more than just parallel parking. Remember, even if you're just looking for help with your car, stay away from abandoned buildings unless you're ready for a showdown with clueless bad guys.